After going through this video, you will be able to explain wireframes, list down ways to create a wireframe, create a wireframe using display inline block. So far in this training, we have learned and practiced HTML and CSS properties on numerous codes to help us understand the importance and logic behind them. Learning these properties is enough to take us to the next level, that is, to start thinking about structuring a website. So in this video, we will learn how to design and structure a beautiful looking web page from scratch. Let's begin. Before a web developer starts writing a code to create a web page, there is always a designer who beforehand designs these beautiful looking web pages. The designer takes into consideration the color theme, fonts, and the visual aesthetics and then creates these visually appealing web pages. And these designs are then forwarded to the web developer who keeps in mind the design shared by the designer and codes the exact thing. Let's say the designer has designed this beautiful looking web page, which is basically a web page of the project website which we will be creating in this training. As a web developer, our role is to convert this design into a web page using HTML and CSS. But how can we do it? Well, the first step to create any design into a web page is by creating wireframes on a piece of paper based on the design given to us using a pen and paper. Now, you might be wondering what wireframes are. A wireframe is a skeletal outline of a web page. It consists of horizontal and vertical lines that form boxes denoting containers that further contain different elements of the web page. For instance, we should always draw these wireframes in as much detail as possible, ideally with one box containing only a single element. For understanding purposes, let us consider a different wireframe as shown, which we have drawn on a piece of paper. We can see in this wireframe, we have several containers. The next step is to create a web page that consists only of the lines representing the containers. After this, we will place each element one by one in these containers. And once all the elements are in place, we will remove all the lines. So, after removing all the lines, we will then style all the elements as per the fonts, colors, spacing, etc. defined in the design of the web page. Please note that the key to creating any web page is to create the wireframe properly and as detailed as possible. And if it is not, then it will become difficult to adjust and align the elements in the containers and the web page would not look visually appealing. Now, let us look at the different ways using which we can create wireframes. The first way is by using display inline block. The second is by using float, and the third way is using flexbox. Let's see how we can create a web page using display inline block for the given wireframe. If you do not remember what display inline property is, I would recommend you to quickly go through topic 7 of this module. So first, we will use div elements to create these containers and give them borders to get these lines. In the design, we can see that the containers are not systematically aligned. That is, they are neither occupying a single line nor aligned next to each other in a single line. There is no particular pattern here. Looking at this image, there are two questions that generally arise. One, is there a particular pattern to it? And second, how can we align the elements in a particular way? So to answer the first question, web pages are designed by the designers to fit the content in the best possible way. Now, this is something we should not worry about as it is solely designed by the designers. And to answer the second question, how can we align them in a particular way? In such cases, we try to identify the boxes that spread across the line horizontally from the leftmost point to the rightmost point. In this design, we have these 5 boxes that spread horizontally from the leftmost point to the rightmost point. Next, we will use div to represent each box in our code like this. Let me first make a few adjustments in the code as there are too many divs and it might become confusing at some point. This will make the code look cleaner and will help us understand easily. Here in the code, we have specified the height of the div elements. Can you guess why? Just think for a few seconds. The answer has something to do with the default value. The default value of height is auto, which means the div elements would take a minimum height that is needed to fit in the content. Since the div elements do not have any content, they would collapse to 0. This is why we have specified the height here for div elements. If we look at the output, we can see the 5 boxes which we have created using div elements. You can see the div elements are taking complete rows. Can you guess the property value pair responsible for this in case of a div element? If you have guessed the answer as display block as the property value pair, then you are correct. The default display property value for div elements is block, which allows the div elements to stretch from the leftmost point to the rightmost point, taking up the entire row. So that's it in this video. We will continue creating the web page in the next video. See you then.